Awesome. We are live. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Amy, Arit, hi.
Hi.
How are you both today?
Yeah,
Good.
good.
Good. Loving the red, Arit. Loving the background, Amy.
Thank you.
Amazing. So, thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is the session. My name is Azariah. I'm the host for this session, and it's all about career pivots, navigating pivots, change, and progression. So we've got 45 minutes. So I just want to get straight into it. So it'd be great if you can both introduce yourselves and answer the question, why this session, why now? Arit, you go first.
Hey everyone. I don't think you can see my name, but that you might be able to see my name, but I can't see my name. But yes, I am Arit. And all of the work, I guess I help people build careers they enjoy in businesses that value their people. And why now? Two reasons is because I'm in the middle of, I think we just worked it out. I think it's my fourth or my fifth pivot, but I'm not going to lie, this is my hardest pivot. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later on. But I just think I did an article on LinkedIn and it was about moving before you're ready. And I think career pivots are just going to become the norm because we'll have much more like portfolio careers, right? Instead of like that career ladder has disappeared. So if we're going to be having portfolio careers, we're going to be working for longer, living for longer, we're going to be pivoting. So I'm like, let's normalize. How about we normalize career pivots? And I wanted to do it, but primarily selfish is because I'm in the midst of one and I want to talk about it.
No, that's a great point. It's always good to have a conversation and just realize you're not alone in it, really. Amazing. So Amy, what about you?
So on Arit's point there, so Indeed did some research last year, and I believe 49% of professionals that were asked had said that they'd made a pivot, and not just a slight pivot, it was a major pivot. So 49%, it's almost 50%, right? So I feel like this is something that people experience. The average age of a pivoter as well is 39, apparently. And as a 43-year-old woman, I, like Arit, I'm about to do, well, actually, interestingly, I was about to make a pivot, my fourth career pivot, and I've decided not to and stay in my lane. But I think that, pivots are great. It's more opportunity for us to be fabulous in different parts of the market. But also you have to remember, I'm not who I was when I was 21. You are not who you are when you were 31. Like, we change. So of course we are going to, what's important to us, how we show up in the world is going to change. So pivots, you say normalize it. It's almost 50%. So I'm here for it. And also, I've just Arit and I both sold our companies at the same time. We've spent the last 2 years doing WhatsApp notes and voice notes to each other going, what am I going to do with my life? So we've both navigated our most recent pivots. So good topic to talk about.
I must admit, like, when you say that, did you say 39 was the average age?
The average age, yeah.
Yeah, because I did my first pivot when I was in my early 20s. Moving from it was an educational pivot, moving from working full-time, going into education full-time. And I think I might have been about 2 or 3 pivots in by the time I hit 39. So that's quite interesting. I can see Ricardo said I pivoted back into TV and film age 46. Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. So should we just talk about our own pivots just really, really briefly, just to give people context that are on the call? So Arit, did you want to just start with your pivot and then Azariah can jump straight into the questions?
Yeah, so I think my right from my first pivot.
Yeah, just the pivots that you've done. Because it's number 5.
Yeah, I reckon it is number 5. I think it's number 5. So the first, like I said, was the educational pivot. So I was a PA. I was a PA working in hospitality, and I wanted to write and explore my creative side. So I went and did an educational pivot. And then when I came out, what that enabled me to do, and I think it's really important when you're pivoting, is remember your transferable skills. Because I had been a PA, I was able to get work in TV using my administration skills and my typing and organizational skills. So they helped me get my foot in the door in telly. And then, but I was a single mum, so I couldn't be on productions, like work in the long hours, because I wanted to like have more balance. So when my daughter got to primary school, I did my second educational pivot and went to the National Film School and did my producing MA. Then when I came out, I did a role switch. So I was still working in TV, added film as well, but I was doing more producing, script development. So I'd moved out of that admin role, and it was much more, I was able to manage that. So that was more of a role switch. And then the pivot from employee to entrepreneur, that happened organically because of the nature of film and TV. You're on short-term contracts. So you're kind of like, you're freelancing. And I just formalized, I had a couple of longer term contracts. And then I just thought, you know what, I want to run my own business. I wanted to, as my daughter was heading towards secondary school, I wanted to be at home more. So in preparation for that, so I started that pivot earlier, but I had a start date, if you want, for her secondary school. I wanted to have my own business. So yeah, and then now I'm like sold a business, which is a different kind of pivot. And it's a strange pivot, that one. That one is it's my hardest pivot thus far.
Me too.
But yeah, but that's for different reasons, I think.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll dig into that when we go through the questions for sure. But yeah, I think, yeah, I've pivoted quite a lot, but the skills has been the thing, really has been my currency, to be fair.
For sure.
What about you?
Yeah, so if anyone else has pivoted as well, we've got Ricardo's. Just put in the comments what your pivots have been, what age you were, how you felt about it. We would love to know. So I started my career in recruitment. So I was a recruiter and I did that for a good 10, 11 years. And then I decided that I wanted to work it was 2010, the credit crunch hit. A lot of really talented people at work for no reason, for no fault of their own. It was just, the economy had crashed. So I decided I didn't want to work for the companies and hire talent for them. I wanted to work for the employee. So I started my pivot then as a career coach. And that's when I founded Career Cake. And then I built that as a career coaching consultancy business for about 6 years. And then I decided that I wanted to build an e-learning platform to help people in their careers navigate change and challenges. So I raised venture capital funding and essentially founded and then built and sold a tech startup. So for 8 years, I was a venture-backed tech CEO. And did that. And then that was acquired nearly 2 years ago. And then I had to decide, now what am I going to do? I had a baby 3 weeks later. So that's a massive pivot as well. It's like I sold my business, or my identity was tied to that. And then I also became a mum at the same time. So it was like, okay, even though I'd sold my business, I kind of felt like I was unemployed because I didn't have anything to do, but I had this baby to raise. It's like, who am I?
Yeah.
What is my purpose? What is my identity? It was a massive identity shift. And now I'm just this year launched my consultancy again. Thought I was going to pivot because everybody thought because I scaled a tech as an entrepreneur, I would help entrepreneurs. And I do that. I do coach and mentor entrepreneurs. I do that. But I'm sure we'll get into working out your pivots. I decided that actually it was people within businesses that employees that I wanted to continue to support. So yeah, I stayed in my lane. So I decided not to pivot. Yeah.
It's interesting because your pivots, like, I don't know about you, but my career pivots, like, it's almost like as one thing's coming to an end, the next one like just emerges. That's what kind of happened. Even when I sold Diva Apprenticeships, I had set up my consultancy company, All Things People and Talent, as I was closing that down. And I thought I was going to be doing one thing, like a lot of learning and development, talent development, which I've loved for the last three years. But now I'm like, done that.
I love that mindset. Yeah. And I want to encourage that.
Yeah, I want to do other stuff. So I'm like more curious. Like I say, I'm playing out. That's what I'm doing. I'm playing.
Awesome. So we'll go on to the first question that we've got coming through, which is a really, really good question, actually, and it follows quite nicely from what you've both said. So the question is, I'm entering the world of employment again after years of being in business, and quite frankly, the variations of job titles are baffling. I'm not sure how to tailor my LinkedIn profile or CV to fit. help exclamation mark.
Look for help.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I know who this question came from. They were all anonymous, but I think I know who this question came from. But yeah.
Why don't you go for it?
Okay, well, I just want to say that I did that. So in my early 20s, about 20 years ago, I had a side hustle that didn't work out, and I kind of went full in back into employment, and it was a real shift for me, because I just want to say there's a lot of snobbery, not with all entrepreneurs and not with all founders, but there with some. There can be, and I know because I am one, and we both are, you know, we're entrepreneurs, but there can be a snobbery that, like, if you don't work for yourself, then you're a loser. Like, there was that whole narrative around the people I was hanging out with in my early 20s. So all of my entrepreneurial friends, when I then got a job, they just literally didn't want to hang out with me. It was like, oh, well, you've got a job now. It's like, but I'm still me. Like, I just, you know, I'm still a person. So I had to, and this has happened with quite a lot of women and guys that I coach that back into work. It's like, their entrepreneurial circles, because when you're an entrepreneur, you surround yourself with that network. That's your support network, right? Because you might not have a big team, or if you do have a team, they report to you, so who do you confide in? So that's a really big part of your world. And do you lose then, now that you're in employment, you're not an entrepreneur? So I think that's definitely worth just being aware of. It certainly happened to me. I hope it doesn't happen to you. And then the next thing I would say is that I found it really easy, because there's a lot of talk out there. So once you've run a business, you're unemployable. Nonsense. I don't believe that that's true. I see people that have run businesses, being freelancers, had consultancy businesses, get jobs all the time. And I think the real success in that is understanding which skill, of which you have loads, because you've been running your own business, you've probably been, you know, dipping into lots of areas, is most relevant to the employer. And remember that you get to create your own story. So you don't have to, and that's the beautiful thing about our careers, is that we own them. We own our brand. You get to create what story you tell. Obviously, it's going to be truthful. We're not going to lie or make things up, but you don't have to include everything, because as an entrepreneur and a business owner, you've probably done a load of things you probably don't need to talk about. So understanding what skill sets and of transferable skills, we've got critical thinking, motivating people, customer service, partnerships, collaboration, sales, communication, attention to detail. Yeah, all of these wonderful skills that you have, that you pick maybe, right, what's the most, you know, one or two things that are most important to this role and this employer, and then you go all in on that, and you create your story around that.
Yeah, I think I would add to that as well, is like, ensure that your job title reflects like the expertise that's required from that employer, because I've only dabbled, to be fair, in this employee to entrepreneur, because one of my things when I was curious, it's about a year or so ago, I was offered a CPO, a Chief People Officer.
Oh, I think I remember this.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my gosh, like me, like an employee. But that would have been a challenge for me, because I'm used to being in that kind of entrepreneurial space. So going into a working environment, I was like, oh, I don't know, like how am I gonna cope? That would be a big shift. I'd be out of my comfort zone in that sense. But I thought about it. I turned it down at the time because I was transitioning out my business. I didn't want responsibility. I didn't want to kind of hitch my wagon to anything fixed at that point. But when I did start to speak to recruiters, and I have done, about moving into a similar role like that, you do face unique barriers, because they have to, as like with my hiring manager or my recruiter hat on, I have to be able to sell you in, and not all recruiters have the skill set to be able to sell in an entrepreneur. So there's like there can be stereotypes and biases that you might jump back into entrepreneurship. Are you going to be insubordinate?
Yes, I won't be able to keep them. They're going to go and run their own business. This is the thing. They probably only want a job because their business isn't working out.
That you're too risky. And when you're recruiting, you have to de-risk the kind of the any issues that your client is going to have. And so, and also you're working on commission, let's be real. So you want to look for sure bets. So you're totally right in that you have to really, don't make me as a recruiter do too much thinking. Because if you're not telling me your story, if you're not doing that, you're not demonstrating on your CV that how your skills line up with this job, then I'm just going to make up my own story, my own narrative about you. And so I think it's really important. It's a bit like when you're in business, you're used to having to deal with your clients' objections. You know what I mean? You get ahead of them because you're trying to sell them something that they don't even realize that they want sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's that same skill is what you have to use when you're speaking to recruiters and hiring managers. It's, I know that you think I'm risky, so I need to show you that I'm a safe bet. I know that you think that maybe I'm not going to take leadership. And if you know that you're not really manageable, then look for those roles where you've got greater autonomy, where they need someone like you with that entrepreneurial mindset who can balance and juggle lots of things. And you might do that when you're running like a micro business.
Yeah.
So I think it's about selecting those jobs that you know yourself. Like I know, hands up, that I might be hard to manage because I'm used to doing things, making decisions for myself. So I think that that is something to keep in mind as well when you're doing that pivot from entrepreneur to employee, is to really hone in, like you said, on what the skills and responsibilities are, and then direct your kind of pull out those experiences in your CV. Because if you put owner or director rather than say they're looking for a people officer, then already they're like, oh, owner director, how does that make sense? They're trying to make it make sense for them.
Yeah.
You are just a people manager because you've done that in your business, and that's the skill set that you're drawing out on your CV.
Yeah. And as part of that story, that creating your own story as well, remembering, and this doesn't just go for people that want to go from entrepreneurship back into employment. This is for anybody that wants to go from one industry to another. This remembering that part of your story is why you're making this shift. So for me, I felt like I was a plant that wasn't being watered as an entrepreneur. I didn't have a team. I wasn't learning anything, and I wanted to learn more. I was in my early 20s. I knew that if I went into a big corporate, went into a big American beast, and I learned a hell of a lot, that's what I wanted. And for anybody that's moving out of one, never ever focus on the reasons why you're leaving something, because there's usually not necessarily negative, but there's usually something that doesn't exist, right? There's usually a lack of, hence why you're wanting to make that shift. Always focus on the gain, the abundance, what you're wanting to get
completely
from these relationships, add more value, use my skill set in this way, have more impact. So not what you're leaving, it's what you're hoping to experience.
Totally.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, and you're bringing in all that transferable experience with you, is the stuff that you're bringing from your past into your future. I'm just conscious of time, but I can see there's questions that maybe relate more to question number 3 about not sure what to do. Shall we go to that one? Because then I think we'll be able to answer Clay and another person who's asked about when you're not sure where to start.
Yeah, sure. So not sure what to do. I have some ideas, but I get scared. Don't want to make a mistake at this late stage in my career. Eric, do you want to take this one and then we'll go on to Amy?
Yeah, because I can see 50 don't look like it. I know. Clearer, then I can see 40. I need my glasses on for 40. But so I can, because we were talking about this before we started this live, and it's that, like, I've had to reframe like the stage of my career, because I think what we're inferring, at least I feel anyway, is that ambition in that newness and sense of change is only relative to a certain age, and then you count yourself out. So if I'm thinking, right, okay, so the average life expectancy has now risen, so I'm like, can this just not be a new chapter for me?
Yeah, a new season.
A new season. Does it have to be a late stage? Like, who says there's a timeline on when you should switch? Do you know, where did they write that down? I know you have your average at 39, but I did something at 21. So, hey, I'm a maverick.
Yeah. And also, I don't see 50 as late stage. Like,
no, neither do I. So I think there's a mindset switch that I've done. I have just decided that I have chapters. This is a different chapter. And the other thing I hang my hat on, and maybe this is just, it's just life experience, is that I think you have to back yourself. I think, like, I know that I will never go hungry. I have enough skill set to be able to get a job that will feed myself and keep a roof over my head. So if I take that out, that I'm never going to go hungry, and this is a new chapter, then it enables me to like just think a little bit more broadly and not get stuck and locked in fear, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to make a decision because I'm at this age and I'm supposed to have done this. Whoever made up those supposed to have done by such and such an age rule, just probably they're in the grave now anyway, because it's been going on for generations. So it's like, we have to, I think, reframing, you know, the different seasons in your life, or the different chapters, and giving yourself the freedom to still tap into that ambition, that desire to do something different. I think for me, I'm like playing, because I cannot say that I'm like fixed on. I know that I love working with individual contributors and helping them build careers they enjoy. I know I love working with business owners and talent development teams and helping them create workspaces where people can build careers they enjoy, right? So I love doing that. Am I fixed now at this point in terms of my pivot on what that looks like from A to B? No, I'm just playing. I'm curious. I'm like, oh, I'm interested in AI. Let me go and learn about that. How can I make an impact? How can I, what I want to do is to continually make an impact and add value. So I have just relaxed myself, and it's taken time to get out of that, because when you are running a business, you're quite focused. You've got KPIs, you've got targets, you've got a whole business plan. That is odd not having that.
Yeah.
I've had to like, where's my plan for the day?
Yeah, me too. It's like I have my board and my investors every month that this is what we did. Yeah. And now it's like,
Arit from Diva. Now I'm just Arit. Now I'm like,
I love that sense of play, though. It's one of the things that I love about you so much. It's quite similar to what this somebody's just put in the comments. So your name hasn't come up. It just says LinkedIn user. So sorry, I can't say your name. But just that a lot of people in the group that they work with, they go with the flow. They go with the flow type people with no real career plan, which kind of goes against the things that I talk about as a career coach, which is, you have intentions and plans and, that kind of stuff. That's how you make stuff happen. But there's a real magic in playing and going with the flow and just remaining curious. And I love that about you, actually.
But I check in, and because there's somebody that said I've been doing so many things, but I don't know what I'm really good at anymore. So I think there's an element of doing that little that little pit stop, what I call like a little pit stop, is what brings you most joy. Or if you can't answer that, then what do you not like doing? What, and what gives you the most fulfillment, and what are some of your strengths? And ask your friends and former colleagues about that too, because sometimes they can see things that you don't see. Yeah. And then when you're starting to look at opportunities, and also think about your values, like what are your core values? And when you think about opportunities, then I hang them. How do they align with these values? How do they align with my strengths? Because, your career is more like a river. It ebbs and flows. And it's just being able to be free in that sense. I'm still learning. This might just be a season of me learning about what's working for me and being all right with that. And it does take a while to be all right with that if you're someone that is used to having like a more structured plan. I think be curious, because you don't know where it's going to take you. And say yes to things that you wouldn't ordinarily say yes to, just to see, actually, what do I learn about myself doing this?
That's something I do with the clients that I work with. We do 90-day sprints. So for 90 days, so when people come to me and they say, I want a career change, but I'm not quite sure, We often, because quite for anyone listening, you always know, I just want to say this, it's not always about finding the thing that you like and you want to do. It's about getting rid of the thing that's stopping you from doing that. So often, I've been doing this 23 years. There's usually, you know what you're meant to do. You know what you're meant to do in this world. But there's something that's stopping you from doing it or admitting to yourself. So getting rid of that. But part of that is do 90-day sprints. So I encourage people to go back into the workplace or to whatever and say yes to things for 90 days. And then we'll see where we're at. But what you said there, Arit, which is part of the audits that I do with people, is ask 2 or 3 people that you trust within a professional capacity, where have you seen me at my best?
Yeah.
Where have you seen me be brilliant? Where have you seen me in my flow? And really go out and ask them that. And it's a bit of a weird question. Where have you seen me at my best? You know, it's like but it's a beautiful question. So ask that, and that will give you some kind of sense. But on that point as well, Azariah, I just want to say that a lot of people, as part of my answer to this question, will say, just do what you love, do what you're passionate about. And that comes from a really lovely place. And I'm not criticizing that, but I am saying that it's not effective career advice, because when you just do what you love, that can lead to very, very miserable, unfulfilled careers. Because yes, you have to enjoy what you're doing, but don't necessarily do what you love. Do who you are. Do how you show up. So what I mean by that is you need to do 3 things. We need to do things that we're good at, things that come naturally to us, things that we need to feel competent. Right? It's not just about, we work for this great company, the people are all brilliant, I love it, we make a difference in the world. If the skills that you're doing on a day-to-day basis are not skills that you find easy, come naturally to you, are a strength, that you enjoy, because ultimately it's just still you in front of a laptop doing stuff you hate all day, right? So you have to do stuff that you're good at so that you feel competent, so that we feel valuable, because we need that. You need to do things that get rewarded. So you could be a serial killer, you could be Mother Teresa. It doesn't matter who you are. In our core DNA, we all need to feel seen, heard, and valued. So we need that recognition. So that intrinsic and extrinsic motivators. Some people need it more than others. Some people need to get lots of praise by a lot of people, sometimes just by a few. But we all need it to some level. And then the third thing is with the right people. So these people need to have, like you said, Arit, they need to have the same values as you. They don't need to have the same religion, the same religious beliefs, the same sense of humor. They don't need to have the same political views. They don't, all of that stuff. Diversity is when magic happens. We know this. We know this, right? That's just fact. But the values, they need to be aligned. So if you can remember those things, do things you're good at, where you get rewarded with the right people. I mean, we all have days where we want to put a pen in our eye, right? Like we're all going to have those days, right? No matter how much you love your job. But if you can get those things right, then I think that will help guide you on your pivot.
And there's also that big picture, like coaching question, if you were to wake up tomorrow doing a job or a career that you enjoyed, what would that look like? What would you be doing? How would you be feeling? Yeah. And you really allow yourself when I've been stuck in the past, that's the kind of question that I start with, because sometimes I know what it is that I want to do, but I'm just afraid to acknowledge it because people might laugh, or how am I going to be able to do that? Or why me? Or you think you're so special, all that kind of stuff. So getting quiet and just asking yourself that question and just writing, or in your audio, if you're more of a talky person, just saying what it is that comes through without a filter. And really nail it down. Like, what would you be working for yourself? Would you be working for someone else? What kind of a company would you be working with? A large corporate, small startup? In what industry? Would you be managing a team? And you just dig down as far as you can go. Ask as many questions, and then some. And for me, that is sometimes a picture has emerged from that, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so thinking about where I am career-wise, like on a scale of 1 to 10, where would I be, with 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest? How far away am I from where I want to be, from where I am? And it might be, oh, I'm a 5. then why am I not a 4? Or why am I not a 3? And then you begin to think about all the transferable skills, the experiences, the networks you have. And then what would it take for me to get to a 5.5 or a 6? So it's not like I have to go from 5 to 10. Like, what is the little stuff that I can do between 5, 5.5, 6? And you start to unpick it like that. Because some, you know, especially depending on what season of your career you were in, there'll be people in your network. Like, I always think you have enough to get started.
Yeah, exactly. You have enough to start asking the questions. And be curious.
Started. Be curious to start. It's just sometimes we're too scared to ask, or too embarrassed to ask, or I can't ask. Ask. You have not because you ask not. So ask for help. Tell people what you're interested or what you're curious about. Like, I'm really interested in knowing more about this. Do you know anyone that could help me? Because I think once you start verbalizing it, then things come through. I like what Ricardo said as well about his research, because I've also done that at earlier pivots. Just when I've had a clearer idea of what I've wanted to do, is to do research on the sector. So that's really helpful. If you're all of what Ricardo said is really helpful when you think, actually, this is an industry I want to go into. I think doing that, taking that structure and just doing some research, joining the networking groups, and he's done free online courses. Love that. Very proactive. Love that. So you can be structured, and you can, if you're not at that place either, just allow yourself the space to kind of pivot organically.
Amazing. So just to kind of sum it up, it sounds like having the perfect balance between being structured but also being playful. So being able to identify the steps that you take, but in between that, just having curiosity and kind of approaching things differently to figure out what it is that you want and what it is that you can align your current skills and transfer over to.
Yeah, because it depends on the category as well of the pivot, like we were talking about. If you're doing a role switch in the same industry, then, you know, your plan might be about understanding what are the skills needed in that role, and what are the skills that I have that are transferable. What are the gaps? How can I fill them? Then who in my network can help me to start to get that experience? Can I get some of that experience in my current job that will transfer into this other role? Might I have to get some introductions? You know, there might be like a little short-term contract. I can take some annual leave or sabbatical to go and do the contract to get the experience. So your strategy might be a little bit different from someone who might be I don't know, doing a whole industry switch and changing roles as well. So I think once you have an idea of, if you have an idea of what category your switch might fall into, then you might be able to build a plan around that.
Definitely. So that sounds like a good place to start, just figuring out what pivot category you're doing and then taking it from there. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to the next question. So excited to hear your advice on this. One concern I have had, and I guess others will have had as well, is when you change careers, sector or role or both, how do you avoid starting at the bottom, both in terms of doing really basic work and having a starter's salary? And how can you prove you have a wealth of transferable skills, which means you're not starting from the same position as someone at entry level? It's a really good question. Amy, do you want to start off with this one?
Yeah, I think that I think a lot of the answer to this question would be stuff that we've already talked about, which is sort of you hone that, your story, you understand which skills are the most relevant. But I think just to add to that is to work out what industry specific stuff that they need, so that you can upskill yourself. It's a bit like Ricardo with all of the online stuff. So do you need to have experience in Excel? Do you understand that you're moving into a sector or an industry, so like tech, and they will use Slack? You've never used Slack, so can you work out how to use Slack? Can you take a course to upskill yourself on something that they use industry specific? So on that point, somebody's just asked a comment about getting into the charity sector. So so for example, there's lots of nuances and lots of ways that operate that are very, very different in the charity sector. So I think just remember all of your transferable skills. There's absolutely zero reason. Like I'm not even like up for negotiation. Zero reason why somebody that's pivoting has to start at the bottom. Yeah, I think that might just be a story that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Zero reason. And if you do, don't you dare make that pivot. That is not the move for you.
I was trying to think about this, Amy, because I was like, maybe if I'm like pivoting into a sector that has a very structured career route, like medicine, there might be then where I have to, because I thought the same thing. I was like, no, I think that's what we tell ourselves. Nah, maybe if I'm a lawyer or a solicitor and I want to transition, then I might have to do some form of training contract or something like that, which will require.
Yeah, but I see that as a vocation. I don't see that as a career move. That's I think we have jobs, we have careers, and we have vocations. Something like that. I think that's to go and train to be a doctor for 7 years. That's a massive.
That's a big. I see that.
That's massive, and you would expect to start at the bottom. Well, I should hope that you would. But I think with career moves, I think, understand your transferable skills, your value, and don't even start thinking about starting at the bottom, because once you're in that headspace, then it's very difficult to negotiate out of that.
You might do a sideways move.
Yeah.
Dependent, but no, it's not snakes and ladders where you have to go all the way back to ground zero. It's like that sideways move. It comes down to how you sell it to me, the hiring manager. Just don't make me create my own story about you. That's my thing. And the person that put in here, like, we decided to go with someone with charity experience. I would go back to the recruiter and ask them specifically, what is it that they're looking for? What kind of experience are they looking for? Because if you are coming from, like, say, more a corporate background, then your corporate background can really add value in the charitable sector. And charity as experience, is it? Because work environments are work environments. Yes, there might, and it depends obviously on the role that you're applying to as well. But if you're having to fundraising is fundraising, whether I'm fundraising for my thingy business, for-profit business, the skills that are involved in fundraising are the same. Working with stakeholders is the same. Working with building teams is the same. So when people are being very specific, don't be afraid to go back and say, can you just explain what you mean? As in, I have to have worked in a volunteer organization, in a charity, and then ask them, why is that?
So I spent 2 years just doing that. So all I did when I worked at Hayes was I spent 2 years recruiting. So I specifically worked for the Hayes charity and not-for-profit. So I only for 2 years recruited people into charities, public sector, or not-for-profit organisations. And the majority of people that I put into those roles did come from a commerce background, because they were bringing in a wealth of skills. And it's really frustrating when you get told, we decided to go with somebody that already had that experience. It's really frustrating. I get that. Interestingly, my husband also left. He's an accountant, moved into the charity sector, having only worked in commerce. So I helped him navigate into the charity sector as well. And that was something that came up. So I think definitely what you've said, Arid. And on that, I would also say you need to be building the relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that you want to get into the charity sector, for the next 3 weeks, you write down 25 charities that mean a lot to you and that you'd love to work for. Then you research 3 to 5 key influencers or decision makers within those organizations. Then you reach out to them on LinkedIn and you start building relationships with them, following them, engaging with their content. Yeah. Because it's not who you know. You might have heard, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Rubbish. It's who knows you. So they need to know who you are. They need to know exactly. So when the opportunity does come up and you send them a note saying, oh, I know that I don't have charity experience. However, there's a relationship there.
Yeah.
Because if you're just relying on a recruiter or your CV, you're not playing the game right.
Yeah, you do have to be more intentional, especially if that's what the feedback is, being more intentional in that set. But a lot of the times people do kick back because of their bias, and assumptions that making about what it means to work in that sector. It's like that familiarity. Oh, if you haven't done this, then you can't do that. And it's like, if we actually think, and this is now a wider discussion, I'm just chucking that like culturally, is that we are going to be pivoting, and that you too, as a recruiter, might want to pivot one day.
Yeah, I did. I left recruitment. Yeah.
About skills, because skills are the currency that you use to trade between one sector, one job, one employer to the other.
Yeah. So if you focus on those relationships,
the
opportunities are easier to come about.
So I'm conscious of time. We've got 6 minutes left. I think from what you've both said, the common theme here is kind of mindset, really, and being able to acknowledge your skills and know your values. But I think that's a skill in itself, to be able to take away from all that you've done over the years, or however long it's been, and actually be like, this is my thing. This is what I'm sure I'm good at. Can you share your experience on like how you kind of develop that confidence and that motivation to make career pivots? And yeah, how you remain kind of sure of yourself? All right, we'll go with you first, and then Amy, do add if you have
I
anything.
like me first, though.
I don't know. I'm just you're the person that's there on the screen, but also you did mention before you are quite sure in yourself, in sense of, you mentioned never going hungry and things like that. But how did you get to that point where you're so sure that absolutely, regardless of the risks you take, you'll be fine?
I think it's resilience. One, I'm a woman of faith, remember that. So that's where my foundation comes from, primarily. Two, it's at this season in my career, I have enough experience to know that I can bounce back, because life has slapped me around the head and still I'm here. Do you know what I mean? And so I can bounce back. I have been in situations where I'm like, I have zero money, but I'm still here. So something happens. Do you know what I mean? So I think when you I have to start from somewhere. I'm either going to start from a mindset of fear where things are going to go wrong. I can't do it. I'm going to lose everything. So then I don't do anything. So I have that. That's an opportunity for me. That's an option. That's always an option. Or things are going to work out well. Whatever happens, yes, it might, the poop might hit the fan, but I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be able to navigate through it because I can recall this, that, this, and the other. And as a believer, I'm like, I'm never going to go stranded. So I can, it's like, choose your path. So I just choose this one because thus far it's served me better than I can never get out of this. So that's just I don't have it all together either. It's like sometimes I'm like, I see things and I have to catch myself and I'm like, oh wow, that's amazing. Oh, but I've not done that. And I have to like slap myself over the head and be like, come on, like think about your transferable skills. So it's not like I have it all together, not at all. I mean, I just feel the fear and have to do it anyway. Do you know what I mean? So I have an imposter. She visits me all the time. Do you know what I mean? But sometimes she gets the better of me. Sometimes I manage to deal with her. But it's just, I think there's no like, oh, I don't think anyone has it all together. Nobody has it all together. So if I start from that, then I'm all right. I'm in with the majority. No one knows anything. We're all just making this up as we go. And I'm just doing the best that I can with the experience that I have thus far. I don't know whether I've actually answered your question or I've totally gone on a tangent that wasn't relevant to what you asked me. What did you ask me?
It's all relevant. It's all relevant. Right. Amy, 2 minutes left before answering kind of the same question, but also adding in, when you've had that imposter visit, how have you come back to yourself and continued on strong?
So mine's quite similar to Laura, and a few other ladies that I know that I coach. So I specifically work with mid-career level women, and they tend to have had babies. So Laura's saying, since I have breaks from work, to have my children locked down, I now find it hard to articulate myself and sell myself and advocate for yourself. Now, Laura, I know you from previously, our paths have crossed. I know that you are incredible and that you gave me and my company a massive step up. So the fact that you exist in the world, I'm very grateful, because if it wasn't for you, I don't think that my company would have been what it was, right? Because that deal that you helped me get was the deal that set us up for success. So thank you. And that is my example, is putting yourself in situations where people can tell you how good you are. So that might be, and entrepreneurs and founders are really good at this, but women leaders in businesses don't do this as much. Employees don't do this as much. Find 2 to 3 women that you know that are on your level, doing the same things as you in your career. They're your peers, they're failing, they're achieving, you're all in it together. Set up a WhatsApp group, set up a coffee once a month, set up every 3 months, last Friday, we're going to jump on Zoom, celebrate each other's successes, share your failures, and have that network around you, because it's not just because you've had kids and you've forgotten how good you are. The system is set up to enable you to forget how good you are, right? Like the system is broken. A lot of the time people don't have imposter syndrome. They're just in the wrong room. They're just surrounded by really unsupportive people in a terrible environment. That's not you. And I don't think that is what you're saying, Laura, but that is a lot of people that I coach. So don't be quick to just think, oh, the problem's with me. I need to be more confident. Sometimes you're doing a bloody good job in a really, really difficult situation, like a lot of women I work with. So surround yourself with the right people and make sure that you collect all of that good stuff. Screenshot the tweet, screenshot the WhatsApp group. When that client says, thanks for helping me with that, or that colleague says, thanks for holding space for me in the kitchen area, who was crying at the kettle, I don't know, thanks for listening to me today. Screenshot it, see a screenshot and save it. So I call mine a brag file. I know, Arit, you call yours a why I'm hot file. And then in those moments where you forget how blooming good you are,
go into your file.
Go to your file.
Yes, go to your file, and it tells you why you're hot.
Yes. Yeah. So that would be my advice.
Can I just say one thing? Because Emma said something about where you keep losing out on experience, like HR. See if you can do some work with startups or smaller businesses on an HR front as a consultancy staff. Just just reach out to small business owners, micro business owners, join. There's loads of like business networks on LinkedIn, and just offer yourself out to do like HR tasks that you can do on the side that can help you start to get that experience that recruiters are saying that you are lacking, because you only need it to feature on your CV a few times. It's like, oh, that's great. Yeah, they've got that. Yeah, so do that. Anyway, yes, Pamela, get that file. Create that file.
And Andrea, get that file. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you call it, just get it.
Yes. Yeah, just get it. Anyway, we're like 1 minute over.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I hope that everyone who's been listening, thank you for joining, first of all. And I think it's a good start already that you've come to kind of learn how to navigate your pivots and stuff like that. So that's already a good start. But Arit, Amy, thank you both so much for sharing your personal experiences and your wisdom and all your career nuggets and all of that sort of stuff. And to everyone on the call, get that file and just know why you're hot, know why you can brag.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye. Have we ended?